Hi guys, welcome back to My Dad Do Some Dad. Been a few days, maybe even weeks since I last uploaded. Sorry, just been really busy and been a bit distracted. Don't know if I mentioned it or you mentioned it, but Arsenal won the league, so got my medal. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about depression and 6 tips basically to try and help you as an SEN parent try and deal or cope or help alleviate some of the symptoms of depression. And some of you watching this video might have had symptoms of depression before. You might have had quite severe depression before, before you had your children. Or you might not have had any symptoms at all, and you might have been very mentally well balanced, or you might be somewhere in the middle. I think I was somewhere in the middle. I was someone who could be vulnerable to symptoms of depression, and I definitely had issues with quite severe anxiety at times. That can obviously lead to depression. But obviously, when you have children, and when one of your children or more of your children has additional needs, depression can be just around the corner, and it can be something you have to deal with on top of all the other things you have to deal with. So this is just 6 quick tips that have helped me alleviate depression. And if you find any of it useful, brilliant. You might find all of it useful. I think that's me being a little bit fanciful, but you might find 1 or 2 of these tips useful. Try and adapt them into your everyday life as much as you can. Remember to like and subscribe. So number 1, I've got my notes here. Number 1 is nature. Now, if you're in a position to get out into any form of nature whenever you can, it's obviously not possible to do all the time. Some people might be watching this thinking they can't do that very often. But if you can, get out, and it might be something as simple as a park, but any bit of countryside or anything around a lake or anything that's even slightly rural looking. There are studies, I would put them in the description, but you can find them, I'm sure, which show that being around nature, being around quiet, being around animals, being around running water, being around trees and plants can actually help just to get away from, it's escapism. You're escaping from the city where you likely live, or the town and people, busyness, big buildings, concrete, and that can help you kind of escape a little bit from your reality. And that's what we all have to do sometimes, otherwise, it does get too much. So that would be the first tip. Tip number 2, read. Now, I'm not a book snob. Any book that you like to read, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's Great Expectations or 50 Shades of Grey. So my phone's playing up. Just make sure you're trying to do a little bit of reading whenever you can. Now, if you can do 20 minutes, half an hour every day, brilliant. If you can do 20 minutes, half an hour every week, fantastic. If you can do 20 minutes, half an hour every fortnight, brilliant. But what's great about reading, there's books for everything. Yeah, any fiction that you love, that's wild, that's different, that takes you out of your existence, again, back to the escapism point. It's fantastic. And non-fiction, I love the idea of non-fiction. I love reading it, but I find it hard to follow through with it. I kind of get a bit bored. It doesn't exactly inspire me to pick it up again. That's something I've got to work on, but it gives you such a sense of achievement, such a sense of that you're doing something productive. It's better than just watching TV or scrolling through your phone or watching Netflix. Those things are great as well. If they help you, I'm not judging anyone. They can be great as well. But I find reading is just, it gives you such pleasure. It's such a pleasure to be reading and then trying to talk about it with people. And if you have no one to talk to, go to ChatGPT and they can help you, review your book, or you can talk about it with them. So yeah. And obviously Amazon's great, but try and get to your local bookshop. We have a couple here in Southend, second-hand bookshops as well. They're always great. Just pick something up, try and read it. Yeah. As I said, what works for me is fiction. Something that's fast-paced and fun and dramatic. I love all that. Yeah. Tip number 3. Now, this is about balance, and I talk about balance all the time in my videos, but do not immerse yourself too much in autism research. There's so much great autism research out there, or autism fiction, or books, films about autism. Or some of that is great. I mentioned things like the black balloon in the past. I mentioned the Christian's dog in the night time. There's also great research out there from various people, and a lot of it is really useful. But you can't be with that all the time. You live autism. It's there. It's part of your existence. It's part of your experience. Even when you're away from it, it's part of your psyche now. It's part of your DNA, you probably feel like. So keeping it at arm's length, I think is really healthy. Of course, if there's new research out there and you find research useful, I think it's important to keep abreast of it. But balance. Don't get too immersed in it. Don't get obsessive about it, because then it'll just feel like it's overwhelming you and surrounding you. Tip number 4. Now, this is basically, my one is walk. Get out and walk if you can. Yeah, if you feel like you want to get in the car to go to the shop, if you can, you're not feeling too exhausted, walk. I would say exercise. Now, if you run or go to the gym, brilliant. But I don't feel like any of us have time for any of that, really. You know, I've had injuries as well because of my running. And, you know, there's other autism people out there who say we need to keep fit because we need to be healthy to live as long as possible. I get that, but that's a lot of pressure. We're already under immense pressure all the time. So I don't agree with that particularly. So I think just walk as much as you can. Yeah, if you can do it with your little one, brilliant. But if you can get away, again, get your head together, listen to some music, listen to some podcasts, you know, create that bit of distance, which I think is very important and so important to surviving this beautiful but wild and stressful journey. Number 5, this again is about balance, but one day at a time. It's a bit like living through active addiction, I think, sometimes. Yes, you have to think about the future. You have to think about what school your child's going to go to, where they're going to be when they're an adult. You have to think about that a little bit, but you can't think about that too much. You have to just take one day at a time. If you spend too long thinking about the future, you won't be able to deal with the here and now and the future at the same time because, again, it's overwhelming and too much. So just try and take 80%, 90% of it a day at a time. Yeah, and I believe you, it'll just feel a little bit less crazy, a little bit less like a big wall of stress is at you. It'll be like a little chunk of stress, and that is a lot more easy to adapt to and overcome. So, of course, you've got to have one eye on the future, but I would say don't have more than one eye on the future, and maybe even no eyes on the future on various days, particularly if you've had a hard day. So that's what am I now? Number 5. Number 6, try and appreciate the little things. I was reading once on Reddit years ago. I don't know how I came across it. It was a page about people who are basically awaiting sentencing after being convicted of crimes and found guilty, and a lot of them, they're relatively minor things mostly, but you know, they want a remand. But one of them said something like this exact piece of advice, because you're basically just waiting to hear a big punishment. It's hard to live. You're basically just living with this huge weight on your shoulders. And he gave this piece of advice as well. And he gave an example of he smelt the grass when it had been freshly cut the next morning. That's one example. Just if you can find the little things, and I believe me, if you start looking, you might be able to get 1 or 2 on the first day, and then 3 weeks later you can get 3, 4 or 5. And then you suddenly that weight just becomes slightly less. It does feel like a tiny bit more light has come into your head and into your emotions every time you feel, just notice I got this, yeah, playing with my daughter, look a bit like Braveheart. Those little things can be the sun shone in the morning. It can be it rained, but it felt fresher. It can be the guy in the shop smiled at you. It can be that you had a nice conversation with somebody at work. It can be that your little one decided to put their shoes on without you fighting them. Often it won't be about your child, but if it's there, it's there. Those little things, and believe me, you'll be able to find them the more you try this. Practice obviously makes perfect. And if you could write them down, if you have time to do that, that does help. That's one thing I was doing for a while. I didn't quite have the energy to go through with it, but it was helping. Yeah, so that's my next one. And the last one, if you're turning up as often as you can, obviously you need days off, I'm not going to say every day, but if you're turning up and you're there, and you're trying your best, and you're trying to learn, you're doing great. You've already fought half the battle. You're already doing better than most people could. And everything else I would think would fall into place. Parenting, yeah, even if you're parenting children who don't have additional needs, a lot of it is just being there and turning up and trying your best. Additional needs parenting is different to that, but at the crux of it, but underneath it, it's just turning up. My uncle used to say the key to passing exams is turning up. Obviously a massive oversimplification, but it's true. And I think that's the same with in our community when it does get hard, when it does get tough, when you feel like you can't go on. I bet you're still there the next day. I bet you wake up at 5 a.m, 4 a.m. Yeah, I bet you come home from work as early as you can. I bet you're there giving your child what you think the child needs or wants. That's it. If you're doing that consistently, then you're already a hero in my book. So they're my 7 tips, I think it was. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.